Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant Workshop. We will go ahead and get started. This will be approximately a 1-hour overview of the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant. We will go over the agenda in just a moment. Start. This just to get started, we will introduce our office. This grant is administered by the Utah Office of Outdoor Recreation. Tom Adams is the director. I'm Tara McKee. I'm the program manager.
And I'm Rose Smith, the program specialist.
So just a quick idea of what we're going to go over today, an overview of the grant, the requirements of that grant, eligibility issues, the funding parameters, the updates from 2018 for those of you who have been familiar with our grant prior to now, what's different now. The list of attachments that are needed as part of the grant, secrets of success, just how to get started with the online grant, with the online format of the grant, and then the important dates that need to be hit. And lastly, we will not be going over the RTCA today, but this is an idea of the grant history that we have had prior to this time. In 2015, we piloted this program. It was then called the Utah Waypoint Grant. We had just $500,000 to award for 18 different projects. We tried to be generous in that regard. Some projects were not able to get all the funding they probably hoped to get. 2016, the legislature felt like this grant program was worth investing in, and we had $1 million that year. We were also able to fund a youth program grant, and perhaps at one point in the future we can continue to do that, but at this point we are not. Last year we had some stopgap funding of $500,000, 14 grants were awarded, and if any of you were applying that year, it was pretty competitive because there was so little to award. And now, 2018, there is some $5 million that is taken from the transient room tax, which comes out of hotel motel rooms. It's about 32 cents for every $100 spent. The mission of our office is to ensure that Utahns can live a healthy and active lifestyle through outdoor recreation. And in as much as your grant project connects to this, that is a good fit. So we're just going to do a quick overview of, and these page numbers are in reference to where you can find it on the downloadable guide. That program guide, as you may have seen from emails, and you may want to put your, please put your phone on mute if you can, until we have questions at this time to hear. Everybody. Thanks. So we're going to just do a quick overview of who can apply, and that is city, county, tribal governments, variations of that. I mean, special recreation districts can be amongst that group, nonprofit organizations.
So this is a matching grant. So we give it as a 50-50 match. So for every dollar you request from us, you need to match that. And half of your match needs to be cash. So this is also a reimbursement grant. So you do your project, you pay, and then we reimburse you after the project is complete.
Thanks. So there is also a big part of this grant, because our office is within the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and this money does come from TRT funding, as I mentioned. We'd love to see an economic impact from your grant project, something that can help drive visitation to your region, provide some type of economic opportunity for the community, or the potential to retain and attract residents. Be one of these or all three. And oftentimes they are. The same things that can attract tourists can attract people with their business to your area.
So the award amounts, we have a suggested minimum of $5 grand, just because it is quite a process to apply. That is not a required minimum. If you do have a smaller project, you can apply, but we just, with the amount of work we suggest $5 grand. And then our cap maximum is 150 grand per project, not per organization. So if you're applying for multiple grants, your maximum per application is 150 grand.
And then there is this part: the infrastructure must be open to public use. It can't be on within a private camp that the public cannot access. And you know, could it be in the wilderness? I suppose it could be, but it's going to have to be accessible by trail. So they just want to know how to do that.
And then you do have 2 years or 24 months to complete your project. And we do have an option that if you've started your project and you need 2 payments, we can give you up to 75% of your grant award before completion. And then once your project would be complete, we would give you that second remaining payment. So since it is 2 years, some awarded organizations have completed 1 season of construction and requested the funding that they spent, and then after the completed project, we awarded that second payment. So it's not required, it's just what you need. You can either do 1 big payment or 2 payments. And then again, the full funding will be reimbursed after inspection.
These are some examples of some past projects. You can see others on page 12 in the program guide. The first one is the National Ability Center Adaptive Challenge course. So here's a nonprofit that used some of our grant funding and matched it with funding from others to build an adaptive challenge course. This provides an opportunity for those with disabilities to get out and challenge themselves with various skills in outdoor recreation, including veterans. They do have a real impact with bringing people in from around the country that come visit their facility there. And so there was a real connection to tourism. But we also want to encourage those of you who can, if, you know, there may be some ADA requirements depending on your project, and some are not necessarily, such as a mountain bike trail may not necessarily be, it may not have some requirements to be ADA, but we'd love to encourage those of you to consider people of all abilities when constructing your projects and how they might be able to enjoy those opportunities to be more active with their families. This is another project that was funded, you know, in our first year. This is a these are bouldering, artificial bouldering structures that are found within the Lions Park at the north end of Moab. There are no climbing gyms down there, and this opportunity of putting these structures within Lions Park provides an opportunity for people of all abilities to learn those skills of climbing while over a safety surface. And these 3 boulders were created in Salt Lake County, I believe. And this is one of those things that you can have put into a park. The third one is this OHV Trail project. Not only did I want to highlight the fact that we do motorized trail projects, but when you may apply for a project that would do major reconstruction on a trail that has existed for some time, or a trail that was never constructed sustainably to last. So oftentimes DIY trails or old school trails just done with pickaxes and shovels weren't done to really last well. They're subject to erosion and other things, or bridges may have broken down. In that case, you may apply for a major trail construction, reconstruction, addition of other aspects for that trail while you're at it. So let us know if you have questions on that. Then lastly, for our examples today, this is, we'd love to get involved with any projects that involved recreation on the water. And this particular one was done in North Salt Lake on the Jordan River. It provided a put-in takeout spot on the river, complete with a small bathroom, a bit of lawn, and a parking area.
So here's some more examples of eligible projects. These aren't everything. You can be as creative as you can as long as it's eligible, but here's some more examples. So another funding project is around bouldering areas, creating sustainable trails with signage, etc. Multi-use trails, either paved or non-paved. We've got an archery range here. We did fund an archery range last year at Wasatch Mountain State Park through a Friends organization, nonprofit Friends of the Park. And then here's some other creative examples. So for winter recreation, as long as you have permanent infrastructure, you can do winter Nordic trails. That would include the grooming equipment. You could do a warming hut, signage, things like that. Other ideas are a fishing pier or wildlife viewing, boardwalks, other infrastructure such as those.
You can also do kind of a whitewater kayak park, such as this example here, and any kind of recreational structures, you know, in doing a river. I know the city of Helper had been doing that. They did a river restoration project, and then also did a lot to make it the kind of river that can be used for recreation, for tubing, and that type of thing. Another example is that fact that we will do campground facilities, you know, provided the campground at this time is either being sponsored or owned by a community, a county, a city entity. That can be cabins, it could be tree houses, it could be yurts, it can be just typical campground structure for a tent campsite. So those are some opportunities. And then, you know, we do trail signage, but this particular signage is something that we would consider doing with on-street bike you know, the ability to do a road cycling route through your area. This can be very popular with tourists to go do a long loop, such as Washington County has done down in with the Vail Loop in this example, but a turn-by-turn signage that would allow people to do a fun, beautiful loop on their road bikes. Then we also do equestrian focused infrastructure. It could be something like corrals for a campsite that is popular with those that do backcountry horse structures, and improvements to well-known equestrian trails. Obviously, all types of trails are represented here, whether it is, you know, on foot, on bike, motorized, what have you. And during the course of this, please type your questions in, and we will see if we can't answer them. There's a chat line there. So these are some ineligible infrastructure.
So some things we do not fund are anything for a private business. It has to be accessible to the public. We cannot fund only bathrooms. So if you're doing a trail project, that's a whole package, including bathrooms, the trail, kiosks, signage. That's definitely eligible. But the review committee will most likely not choose only a bathroom. So swimming pools, athletic fields, and sport courts are also not eligible. Our grant focuses on the outdoor recreation aspects, and we really want to get that outdoor recreation infrastructure going. We unfortunately cannot fund education programming. This does not include interpretive signage. So if you're doing a trail with interpretive signage, that is eligible, but we mean youth outdoor education programs, paying for curriculum, things like that. It needs to have something permanent. We can't fund private camps, golf courses, standard playgrounds. So if you do look through the program guide, there's quite some detail on natural playscapes, which are eligible. Harbor dredging projects, rodeo grounds, and gardens or community gardens are not eligible.
So here's just a list of the types of things that the grant can be used to fund. So you can use this as a match, or you can use our grant funding to pay for these things. And that would be, you know, in the course of the construction, the rental of equipment, the supplies needed, other construction costs, the services provided, such as unskilled or skilled labor, and that can be a cost or donation, and that can be professional services. Well, you know, the skilled labor and then the unskilled labor. And I will say oftentimes people will get volunteers from the community to donate their time and helping construct, say, a trail, and that is awesome, but that will be something that you'll want to keep good track of and have a project manager over that to make sure that they are really following the guidelines of the trail, and that it is something that is not like a free-for-all, like a, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not picking on Boy Scouts, but if it were a young group of say teenagers or something, making sure that you've got professional direction over that group so that they are doing it according to the needs of the project. And then you can count, if that person is a skilled person, you can count their labor at a higher rate, whereas the unskilled labor might be more of a minimum wage, especially you know, if they really lack the skills. Purchase of non-fixed assets, trail building machinery, hand tools for trail work, land clearing, etc. Those are allowable costs and matches. Again, that trail building machinery should not be the only thing that you're doing here. It really needs to be a project. So a grant application that shows that that is all that is being purchased is the trail building machinery, and really isn't showing much else, would probably score very low. And then gifts and donations are acceptable if they're made during the grant period. So if you are getting donations, gifts of different types, just make sure that that is shown in your documentation as occurring during the grant period. Now, you can obviously have promissory notes and notes from your partners saying, hey, we are going to be donating to this city this amount of money or this kind of in-kind service. Great. Just show that that's going to be happening in the future.
And so we do have a few questions. We will go through them after this next slide because I think the ineligible costs will answer a few of those. So here's some ineligible costs or matches. So construction of storage buildings that are not related to recreation equipment are not eligible. If you need one, for example, at a boat takeout to store recreation equipment, that would be eligible. So you cannot use your own equipment, materials, or property as a donation. You can definitely use it and mark the labor associated with that. Administrative costs, photocopies, any mileage, grand opening costs, that needs to be up to you. Most of our funding from the Office of Outdoor Recreation needs to go towards that construction of the infrastructure, if that's an easy way to think about it. So any staff time that would have already been paid cannot be counted. Grant writing, your time writing this grant is not an eligible cost or a match. And then any future maintenance costs, you need to have that taken care of, and this funding is going towards the construction. So work completed prior to the grant is not eligible, nor is the purchase of real estate or land acquisition for the project. However, we have changed a few things this year. So
yeah, so the costs associated with engineering plans cannot be used as a cost paid for by our funds, but we have changed it so that you may use that as a match. If you are the applicant or your partner is providing that. And the real estate purchases, now please understand that the legislature does not allow us to purchase land with this. They were very specific about that. However, we realize that a lot of you invest heavily in acquiring these prior work. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of things that you spend even prior to applying for this, and we wanted to give you that opportunity to show the scoring entity that is going to be reviewing this that you have already invested quite a bit. So we do have a column on the budget sheet that you will be entering in this investment that you've already made, and that would include the real estate purchase, the prior work expenses that have already been done. Perhaps that's NEPA permitting and so forth. So please refer to the program guide, which will show a filled-in budget sheet for how to do that. And do we have some questions that, Rose?
Yep, so property acquisition, again, is not eligible. A boulder project does count as a natural playscape, so that is eligible. Kim?
Yep, so that's definitely eligible. On campgrounds, you mentioned cabins. Does that include pavilions and picnic tables? Yes, it does, but we don't want to see pavilions being the only thing. So, but yes, it's kind of a package deal, include all of that. Does services include professionals such as architects? Yes, that is the planning part. And I would still put that under the engineering costs. So I would put that in your category of the budget sheet. As you'll see, when you fill out the budget spreadsheet, you have, okay, the UARG funds are going for X and the applicant funds are going for Y, and I would definitely put it in there. And swimming pools do not qualify. What about playgrounds and splash pads? Not standard playgrounds. A lot more outdoor recreation / outdoor adventure focused. if the splash pads were in that realm, it would probably be more likely, but not in and of itself. But just look that over and call us or email me afterwards, and we can discuss real specifics and maybe how to make your projects work. Can you use funding from, sorry, we had something. Can you use funding from other agencies or grants as a match? Yes, you can. And then that an entity can apply for grants for more than one project per funding a year. Is there anything we should know if we're doing this? Here's two things I would mention. We do geographic parity, so to some regard, you are competing against yourself. The best way to help yourself in that regard is to be applying for different outdoor recreation categories, because that is also considered. So, for example, you might have a mountain bike oriented project, and then maybe something is a water related project. When that's coming from the same entity, those aren't competing nearly as much as if they were both mountain bike related projects. I hope that helps. So here's the 2018 updates.
So again, we already emphasized we have more funding. We're really hoping to get a lot of great infrastructure projects on the ground. Again, an increased emphasis on tourism due to the nature of where this funding is coming from, the transient room tax. We are asking some questions about how your project will impact your community and draw people to the area.
And then there's the statement of responsibility. Yes, we've required that before. I didn't call it that. A statement of responsibility is just from the entity. It needs to be from the entity that will be taking care of this project for the next decade or more. Who is going to be responsible for the long-term maintenance? If this is a trail and it was on BLM land, is BLM responsible for keeping this trail in good condition, or is a local trail group going to be responsible? Whoever is doing that, they should be writing a statement of responsibility. This is required.
So we've also shortened and streamlined the application. We got some feedback that it was pretty long last year, so we actually cut an entire section and 12 questions in addition. So if you've done it last year, get excited, because this is going to be a lot shorter. And then this is significant this year. Last year we were not able to have an organization apply for more than one. This year, with all the funding, we are opening that up. So you can apply for more than one, but again, make sure you're making it clear that these are different projects. They're fulfilling a different need, and really make the case as to why you should be funded for all of these.
Yeah, that's good tips on how to be competitive in this year. So you can see the questions in advance that will be available on the online application. You could also just go online and go look through it. But this is something that you can download from our website. It just shows what this looks like, and it provides a good snapshot of what you're going to be expected to have to do.
So in order to access the full application, you will have to fill out a preliminary questionnaire. It's very simple. It asks for your contact info and asks 5 eligibility yes or no questions. So this is online through Salesforce, which we'll go into in a little bit more, later. And then once you fill that out, you'll get an email that says you are eligible or you're not. And you'll get a link to the full application. So if you download this sample, you will get all the questions. It will look a little different in Salesforce, the portal. So yeah, we'll just go over the 5 sections really briefly. So the contact info.
The contact info, you know, that's pretty self-explanatory, except the fact that we are requiring to contact people. One can be the grant applicant, one can be the project manager if those are two different people. What I am looking for is to not have that person who filled this out and put in their contact information be the person that disappears and not have a way to contact those people going forward. The other issue that we have run into in the past is sometimes when we've had a person who is working for a city and that person decides to go on to another job and does not leave me with any heads up that they're leaving and no person to contact. It does provide me with precious time to try to have to track down another person who's taking that project over. So please give us two people that you think are besides yourself that might be, or one other person besides yourself that would be good to have as a long-range contact for this project.
So the second part is the project overview, where we ask for an abstract, which is 2 or 3 sentences, kind of an elevator pitch, and then a description, which we'd like a little more detail, and it's a snapshot of your project. The third part is project readiness. So we want to have you describe how you've prepared for this. Do you have your ducks in a row? Do you have conceptual designs? Do you have engineering already done? Are you potentially shovel ready? Part 4 is recreational access and value. So we want to know who this is serving, who in your community will use this. Is it accessible? Have you made sure you've looked at ADA requirements? What problem is it solving? And then we have a whole bunch of attachments that are little pieces of your story that you can use as a tool to show us why you should get funding. So again, if you download this sample, you'll have all the same questions. And then when you create a portal on Salesforce, it'll just look a little bit different, a little more basic text boxes.
So let's just go over the attachments. You can see this on the program guide, pages 7, and then there's a really quick and easy checklist on page 33 that will help you in gathering this. The first thing is the maps and design plans. So your first map should be a macro view. Where is your project in relation to the nearest city or town? And so that it can help the scores to locate it on a map. The second one would be a smaller micro view. And I would just add, if it is a trail and you are just doing a segment of a trail, not like a full trail loop, but even if you are doing a full trail loop, how does it relate to other trails that could touch it, whether now or in the future? I will just add that what I saw once happen in the past was a applicant submitted a picture of the trail, which was great. It showed how this was adding to an existing trail and extending it for another mile or more. But what it did not show is why it suddenly ended where it did according to their map. It did not show, like, such as a dotted line, such as the county will be taking this from the point where we're ending it. So it didn't fit it into any kind of master plan for trails in the area. And to the scoring committee, it merely looked like a trail that just kind of ended in nowhere. Don't sell yourself short on trails and in that regard. So please, if you can, show where it fits into a master plan. And then on design plans, that would be conceptual designs. We're not expecting for you to have fully engineered plans ready. If you do, that's awesome. But at least conceptual designs, especially in regards to something such as the Boulders or a playscape, those types of things, a campsite. Letters of support.
So you can have, we require a minimum of 3 letters. You can have up to 7. And we do require one to be from either a local tourism office or an economic development office. And if your county does not have those at the moment, just reach out to us and we can work that out. But the other ones, this is a way to show that you have support for your project. So are businesses in your community donating, willing to donate? Is, you know, local groups, nonprofits, those are really strong partners. As much as you can to show your partners that you have collaboration. That's a great tool to show the advisory committee that this project is being super supported and it should get funded.
The statement of responsibility, I think we covered that, but if you've got questions about that, I will say page 10 gives an overview of what that statement of responsibility should contain. I do not give you verbatim what needs to be in the body of the letter, but there are a number of points that need to be hit there. The one thing that you can add, if it comes down to it, if there may be some groups that are willing to do some short-term maintenance, that would be perhaps seasonal, such as say you have a high school mountain biking team, which you know, part of what they do is encourage those youth to give back, and in many ways, one of those might be with the local mountain bike trails. They could do pickup days. They can help do graffiti cleanup as needed. Just some simple stuff that high school age youth can help with. And you can include that in your statement of responsibility, as long as obviously that entity has agreed that they're wanting to help you with that.
So we do just have a budget worksheet in Excel this year. Last year we had a narrative to go along, but we decided to just give you this chance to show us. We want to know where our money is going, where your match is going, and it's a chance that you can, again, record all the previous funding that is not eligible. You can still record it as part of your project value. We really want to see all that you're putting into this and the ROI that is coming from our funding.
Robert asked, we just noticed, where do you get a copy of the grant book? You go to business.utah.gov. We'll be showing this on the screen, /UORG, and that's for Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant. It will provide all of the different types of downloadable materials that you can use. So that's where you get the grant book, the program guide. And the project timeline, again, this is just showing the scoring committee that you have a plan to finish this within a 24-month span of time or less. And then any needed agreements. Now, so these may or may not be required. So if you are the landowner, you are a city or county and you already own the land, you just say, hey, we own the land, this is what we're doing. If you do not own the land, then there needs to be a memorandum of understanding with the entity that does own the land. If it's a trail that's going through private property, we need to see copies of grants of easement provided by those private landowners, copies of leases for long-term leases. There's got to be a minimum of 10-year lease for anything that would not be yours that you're going to be leasing. And those are on page 8. And then any needed federal permits, and sage grouse management areas are one of those things that you may have to look into. We'll be going into that in a little bit. If not, check out page 9. So SGMA stands for Sage Grouse Management Area. There should be a link if you download the program guide that shows you how to get to the Department of Wildlife Resources map. Simply check that out. If your project is anywhere close to a sage grouse management area, you will need to contact Sarah with DWR. All that information is in the program guide. And she will contact the wildlife biologist who will need to find out where your project is being built and then get back to you as to whether you can proceed or whether you need to make some seasonal adjustments in the construction, whatever the requirements might be.
So on to our secrets of success. So again, we've shortened the application, so every question is your chance to tell us a part of your story. So the majority of the questions are narrative, so take your time to really craft your response. Make sure to have somebody look over it, and if they knew nothing about the project, could they understand what you were trying to get funded? So with the description, a nice tip is to make sure that you have a summarizing sentence from each of these sections in there. So if the reviewers only look at the description, that they can have kind of a good snapshot. How long is your trail going to be? How much are you asking for? Who in the community is going to use this? Who are your partners? Kind of throw little tidbits of that in there because just so you know, our grant committee is 14 members and they will not read every application. We have reviewers assigned to main applications and they'll read every detail, and then those people report back to the entire committee and give a summary and talk about, and then there's a discussion about funding or not funding. So really make sure that your description gives a good overall picture of your project.
And then, you know, there are these questions. So each of this Q refers to the area of the application that this covers. So this is basically, how does the construction of your project solve a problem for a given area? You know, that can be as simple as, we don't have this, we could really use this because it will help drive visitation, but it can be very specific. For example, if you have a real need for mountain biking trails because of your the youth need and desire for high school mountain biking trails is driving them out of your area to go find these trails, you can be discussing that as how your project solves that issue. So that's just a part of it. And then please reach out to that local tourism director. Not only do you need his or her letter of support, but we're hoping that they will be supportive in other ways once your project is complete. Maybe they will help you in driving people towards it, either tourists or local residents. Maybe they can help give you a little PR help when that time comes. But they definitely need to be aware of what's going on in their areas. It's been one of those things where they have no idea, and that somebody was doing something and they thought, I really could have helped them had I known from the beginning instead of after the fact. So please reach out to them. And then I think we covered this. How do you fit in with a master plan? I mean, I covered it as far as trails, but your area may have a master plan for recreation. Many of the counties are trying to do this. You could always check in with the county on this or ask me, and I may be able to help you. But many of the economic development directors are aware of that, and obviously how it fits in with the master trails plan.
So the committee really values partnerships. It shows that you've been organized, you have tons of support. So as much as you can talk about your partners, make sure that you have that documented in the application.
And you know, this part about starting early gathering documents, use that checklist, page 7. Obviously, right now is the time to start if you have not yet done so. And I will just say this for next year too. Please apply this year, please apply next year. But if you're applying for next year, it's not too early to start working your way through this stuff.
So we definitely want to see those support letters, but please try and have them be unique. We have in the past had the exact same form letter about 8 times with just a different signature. So as much as you can make that effort, put it on letterhead, make sure that it's signed. It's not just an email chain saved. Those little things really do show that you've put in the effort.
And then we can't emphasize it enough. Really know the guidelines. Read through that program guide, and keep that program guide. I will say, should you get this grant, keep that program guide. It will also guide you through how to do the reimbursement when the time comes. And yes, start now. Use that sample application. You could put your information into Word, start crafting your project description and so forth. Have other people look it over and give you input as to, you know, whether all your spelling and grammar is great, but also whether to them you really are telling the story in great descriptive words. And obviously, Rose and I are available if you want to call and email us, and you know, with your questions.
So here's some tips for the online application. So first step, check out our website. It's right there, business.utah.gov/UORG. We have frequently asked questions. We have a link to every past project we've funded, and we have a bunch of downloadable resources. So the budget sheet's on there, the timeline, some checklists. There's a lot of great resources. So start there for sure. It is going to be online, so make sure you're set up with a good internet connection. You're prepared to fill this out online. It does take a few hours, so be prepared. You can type up your answers in Word or a word processor and just copy and paste those into the Salesforce text boxes question by question. So you can work on this offline and then transfer it. You can save and come back to the portal at any time. So that way you also have a backup. If something goes wrong, you haven't lost all your work.
Yeah, this save often, it's not, unfortunately not done in autosave. So, I mean, I've been joking that this is kind of like the 80s all over again for those of you who had computers in that era. So just remember at the bottom of the page, push that save button before you leave the page.
And then if you are copying and pasting, there is a word count. It's not small, it's pretty large. We're not trying to cut you off, but just make sure you haven't cut off any text. And then the word count, and there's a progress bar for each text box, so you can make sure that you aren't getting cut off. And so the budget sheet is an Excel format and the timeline is in Word. If you save as once you're complete as a PDF, none of your formatting will change, and you can upload that PDF. That's a nice tip so that you know that nothing got changed.
And then you should see a confirmation email that your application was successfully submitted. If you don't get that, please let us know, and we'll check into what could have happened. And this is the important dates to hit. So you see this early deadline, April 5th. Rose and I are offering a special deal for those who get their applications in early. We do not score. Let me just reinforce that. Rose and I are not able to score any of these applications. That is done by a special scoring committee. But what we can do is look over each of your applications. If you get them in full by or before April 5th, we will look through your application, not judging content, but to make sure everything came through as it's supposed to. Every once in a while, we have seen wonky formatting on something, or maybe a blank paper submitted instead of perhaps the map that they thought they'd submitted. So if there's any of these glaring problems, we will contact you and say, hey, you know, we noticed this and we want to give you every opportunity to do well. So we are guaranteeing that if you get it in by April 5th, that we will provide that. And again, we are not able to say, oh, project description could be a little better written. None of that, but we will help with just kind of making sure that everything looks as if you probably meant it to happen. You know, whether you know, may have messed up on, you know, just putting your name in the wrong place. Any of that we can help with. And then the applications are due by April 19th, 5 p.m. Final decisions and grants approved July through August. So let me give you this clue here. What does this mean for you? This means that you will get, and this really depends on, you know, the vacation schedules of the committee, but once they have made a final decision and you and we know that these grants are going to these entities, we will contact you and let you know. So at that point, you could actually start before the contract. This might give you an extra month or two as far as construction time. So you could start this summer. That would give you maybe 25, 26 months instead of 24. So we obviously, if you get one of these notes, you'll read the text, and you have to actually say we accept those conditions, and then you're good to go. Then the official legal contracts are sent out to be signed by whomever is legally able to sign those. In some cities, they do require that their city council approves it and the mayor signs it. So we do know that those things can take a little bit. But once all that's taken care of, your contract, it might be, say, start September 1, 2018, and at that point you've got 24 months to complete the project. What if your project's scheduled to begin and end this summer? Then I'd say you probably should have applied for last year's funding. That's too soon to be able to get it, unless you're talking about July or I mean late August. Can it be? Is it a short project? So let me see that question. Can you clarify whether projects can be built on state property? So here's the deal. It's got to be a workaround. Yes, it can be built on state property. Yes, it can be built on federal property. However, the applicant cannot be the federal entity or the state entity. So they should be a partner because it's their project. But in the case of a state park, it could be a county. It could be the Friends of a State Park 501c3. Ditto for something done on, say, BLM or National Forest property, where it could be a nonprofit or a nearby city entity or county entity. We've seen something in the past where something done in a state park was applied for by the local tourism office. So, and go.
So we'll move on to showing you how to do the online portal. So we will be using Salesforce, and the link is live right now. If you go to our website, it's right there. You'll see it, and we will also send it out in a newsletter this week again. So again, it's already live, March 1st. You can ask for help anytime during the process, and then it closes on April 19th, and we will not accept any applications late for any reason. The portal closes. So this is a snapshot, and we will answer the rest of the questions at the end of, we just have a few more slides, so bear with us here. So the first step is to get registered. This is what the portal looks like. You could be doing this right now as we go along. It's live. Just giving you a snapshot what to expect. this is your portal. So you have an opportunity to apply for the preliminary application. And then once you do that, you'll be able to apply for the infrastructure application. And then you can come back and save and update at any time. That review button is for our committee, so you won't be able to see that, but then there's also some menu options up at the top. So that's the link to the preliminary application. You apply. So these are just simple text box questions. One thing we want to point out is most questions have an orange question mark next to them, and that will give you extra information on what we're looking for, some extra hints there. So make sure to check those out. And one question we ask is we want your coordinates of where your project will be, because we actually live map these as we're scoring to show the committee where this potential funding could go across the state and to see the impact. So an easy way to do that is we do want your decimal points. We don't want your minutes
degrees,
and seconds. Yeah, so Google Maps will do it for you. It's pretty easy. So you click approximately where your project will be. You can choose if it's a trail, you can do the trailhead or a section along the trail. It's up to you. We just want to see where in the county it is. And then boom, your 2 latitude and longitude coordinates pop up and you can copy and paste those.
And then, yeah, we just wanted to give a heads up. This may be of interest to many of you. Our Outdoor Recreation Summit will be upcoming right after Labor Day. We have tracks that are completely designed for outdoor recreation planners and for community development, anybody basing things on recreation tourism. There may be a number of things that are helpful for future projects, and obviously the networking is awesome. We've got the outdoor industry there, public land managers, a number of people that may be helpful to you in some way, and it's going to be a wonderful summit, and we'll be sending out information, so look for that upcoming in the mail. And this is us, so please contact me and or Rose. Those are the website things. The /outdoor is their General Office of Outdoor Recreation website, and the UORG is grant specific. I will go through your questions. Rose is going to go off to her next meeting. One of the questions was, can trails be constructed of concrete rather than dirt or pavement if it makes the best sense? And yes, whatever makes the sense for you, crushed gravel, concrete, asphalt. What we're looking for is good construction for some durability. And you know, I will say, for those of you who don't have further questions, this does conclude our webinar for today. If you've got some questions for me at this time, you can type them in or contact us as desired. But thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing those applications, getting more project to be able to fund in the near future. So thank you.